Okay, so this is the last two pesukim in our series of the Father's Moshe to the Son. And I know that because after, so first of all, there's a parsha break, but then after that, it says Gam Ela Lachachamim, which is clearly the beginning of a new section, So here we go. Okay, these two pesukim, or the first one at least, always makes me strikes me as strange. Let's see if it strikes you as strange in the same way. Yira as Hashem b'ni v'melach. Fear Hashem, my son, and the king. Im shonim altis arav. Oh yeah, sorry, I translated it, but fear Hashem, my son, and the king. Okay. How do you translate im shonim altis arav? With yeah.
Shonim sleeping.
Liars, maybe, like those who are different.
Okay, yeah. So one translation is sorry about that. I'm sorry. with shonim. Okay, so those who are different, that's one. Metzudas ציון says shonim is milashon hishtanus v'chiluf k'mo v'dasehem shonos. So those who change. Okay, those who change. Yeah. You know how my way I remember of how do I remember this? Yashan and Shana. What's my mnemonic device? I always used to forget whether Shana meant sleep or old age. And I the way my mnemonic device was that girls named Shana need to have their beauty sleep, and Yashan reminded me of the word Shana, which is long, a year, which is like, so like you have many years if you're, yeah. Anyway, so Yashin, that was the Yashin is like Shana is like beauty sleep.
What's
Shinayim? Yeah, right. Yeah. That one did not enter my mnemonic. Okay. I think there's one more translation of this, but I guess we'll see. So im shonim altis arav, which we had earlier, I think. I didn't have that last week. No, 2 weeks ago, or not at all. Oh no, we did. Wait, no, we didn't. Okay,
maybe,
fine.
Maybe
Monday night. Yeah. Okay. So
we added the translation for a word.
We added for the translation of tiskar, I think, in the Metzudas. Let's just see if that's Metzudas. Where was that? That was 19. Tiskar he's arvus lihidamos. Yeah. So how do you translate altis arav?
Don't get mixed up.
Yeah. Do not get mixed up. I like the word mingle here. It's possible that our school said that, but mingle is a good English word that means like hanging out with people to like assimilate to them in a casual way, Okay. Ki pitom yakum edam.
Oh, pitom, like mapitom. No, it's not like mapitom?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that's used differently, right?
Or suddenly they're
for suddenly their disaster will can we come up with a better one for yakum?
Arise,
establish. Do you
get up?
Yeah.
Come forward.
Maybe just the disaster will come.
I think arise is
disasters arise? Like this is weird thing to say in English. Yeah, I don't like that. The disaster will say come up, I guess. Feed shneim miyodeh. Okay, so feed is a word that no one knows.
Like lead to like a situation or something,
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Feed is, he says inyana como aid. So he says feed is the same thing as aid, as misfortune. And if you click on the BDB, apparently this word just does not appear very often. Where is it? Feed, ruin or disaster. Feed. Yeah. Okay, so their disaster. That was good. The disaster come. Ufid shnehem miodea. Let's just say ruin shnehem of the two of them. Miodea. Who knows? Yeah. Okay. Are you saying that genuinely or ironically?
I didn't.
Because you're saying who knows. Sorry, I thought you were saying who are the two of them. But yeah, I assume it is. Oh yeah, you're right. That's a good question. Okay, that'll be a question. All right, let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's see. Sadigon says Al Tisarav Al Tisarav im mishatfim. I think he's learning it as combiners to be mishatif something, but I don't know what that means. Okay. But he's learning it mixing like that, right? Oh, sorry, not mixing like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how he's learning it. And then he says, Kishlon shnehem mi ze yodea es ito. So, and the stumbling of both of them, who knows its time? Okay, so I'll write that. I don't know what that means. Okay, and the stumbling of both of them, who knows its time? Okay. Targum, I might ignore the Targum. So let's see. Dechal min alaka bri min malka bim shatye lo sis chalat metul de veshilia ase tvarhon vesofa dishnehon man yadea. Okay, so he says sofa is the end. So I presume it's like a disastrous end. But yeah, and then I don't know what tis chalat is. Yeah, I'm just gonna conveniently ignore that. Okay, so then we got our scroll. Fear Hashem, my child, and the king. Do not mix with inconsistent people. That's how Art Scroll says. So inconsistent people. Inconsistent people. Okay. Okay. I think we should all like leave each other right now. Okay. For their disaster will arise suddenly, and who knows the punishment of both. Punishment. So they say Pete is punishment. What do we say? Ruin. Okay. So punishment of both of them. Okay. Living Nach says, fear God, my son, and also the king. Do not associate with those who sow discord.
What does that mean?
It means to like start arguments and start fights, quarrels. For their chastisement comes suddenly, and who can know beforehand both their punishment? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I don't know where to get sow discord from. Alter says, okay, Alter is going to pull an alter, altering the text. Fear the Lord, my son, and the king. Neither one nor the other vex. For ruin from them rises suddenly. Who can know the disaster wreaks by both? Because that's an interesting one. So, so he's learning ruin and punishment of both as the ruin and punishment brought about by both. Okay, of both. I should say it like this, or brought about by both. Okay, but then here's his explanation for why he changes the words. Neither one nor the other vex. The Masoretic text reads, and don't mix in with shonim. Okay, tisarav. The meaning of shonim is in doubt. Something it means dissidents, meaning like people who differ with something. The King James Version guesses desperately them that are given to change. There's no evidence that this verbal root, which can either mean to repeat or to be different, had either of these senses in the Bible. Okay, well, there's no evidence, but that doesn't mean you just throw out the text. The translation follows the Septuagint, which reads Shenehem, the two of them for shonim. So it puts that up in the early part, and tit abar, or perhaps tit aber, a root having to do with anger instead of tit arav. So like it reverses the bet and the resh. Mix in. This two-line proverb then follows a recurring theme of the book in warning against provoking those in power who can have a short fuse and a heavy hand. Okay, we're going to stick with the Masoretic text because we follow the Masorah. All right, Masoret siag latorah, and that this is alters what happens when you break the siag. Okay, so let's put this down here, and then what was the question you asked before?
Who are the two?
Who are the shnehem?
Yeah.
Right. In Chaf Beis.
Yeah, I guess the possibilities are Hashem and the king.
Yeah.
Or two shonim, maybe.
Okay, so let's see. Hashem and the king. Two shonim.
You and shonim.
Yeah, it's hard for you to not mix with yourself though. Oh, sorry, no, two you did. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you and one of the shonim. Yeah, strange. Okay, next. Yeah, David.
What's being brought in by fearing Hashem here?
What is what being?
Like, what is Shalom bringing in Yirat Hashem?
Okay. Did you say the word brought in, or did I just miss it?
Brought.
Oh, brought in. Okay, I was like, that's an odd conjugation. All right.
Like if these things are consequential, So just don't.
Okay,
get
so
into that.
why are we talking about Yiras Hashem here? Yeah, Ariel.
Is the father preparing his son to be a melech? I mean, like, why just have the son and the king? Like.
Okay, so let's just ask what's the scenario, maybe. What is the scenario here? Why is the father warning the son about the king? Yeah, Isaac.
What's the comparison between Hashem?
That's my problem. Is this pasuk almost strikes me as heretical, right? Not heretical in the sense that you're denying the Ikarim, but since when do we like compare Yiras Hashem in the same sentence to anything else? Like, you know, yeah.
Specifically, there's almost no ways that those are the same, you know.
Right.
Other than that, we draw from fearing the king as a lesson for proper respect.
Right, but in actual nature, they're very different.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and to compare them like dilutes fear. Well, either dilutes fear of Hashem or it raises fear of the king
It's
to
also that principle, right? You don't mention like Malchus, Hashem with Malchus.
or you're
Adam
saying the Malchus specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, like invention.
Right, that's true. How can we sorry, and this is reflected in halacha. Oops, sorry, reflected. This is reflected in halacha. What are you about to say, Isaac? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it just come across like, oh, Hashem is an authority, the king's an authority.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's very, very bizarre. Yeah.
So I must have been reading the pasuk different. I thought that the pasuk was reading Fear Hashem, my son, and the king, with shonim. Those were different. Those were changed. Meaning, like it's warning the son and the king.
No.
No,
Yeah.
It's not.
I don't think so. Can you read that way?
I don't know. That's just how it's written from the beginning.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think you could read that way.
So read it one more time. Then when you're reading this.
So he's telling his son to fear two beings. He's telling his son to fear Hashem and to fear the king. And then second thing, with shonim, do not mingle.
Right. And how come you can't read it the first time? Just for my.
Well, Yira is a tzivui, right? So he's
yeah.
commanding his son to fear Hashem.
Yeah.
But he's not commanding the king to fear Hashem. He's not saying. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. You can't read it that way. Yeah.
I feel like when you were explaining that, it highlighted the question that we were asking.
Yeah.
Because you were you're trying to figure out how to say to, and be referring to Hashem and the.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
Also, because there's Vamelech instead of Umloch, you can understand it as and you will rule.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Melech is definitely not.
So why is Fear Hashem? Why don't you say Fear Hashem and the king, my son? Why is my son just slipped in there in the middle between the Hashem and the king?
I can't answer questions like that.
It's a poetic reason.
Yeah. It could have easily said it the other way.
Reason?
No, could have easily said it the other way. Yiras Hashem v'melech b'ni. Could have said that, or it could have said b'ni Yiras Hashem v'melech. There's three ways to say it.
Arguably, it's to separate between Yiras Hashem and.
Yeah. Remez Yeshbo. Okay. Yeah. What else?
What are shonim?
Yeah. What are shonim? That's a big question.
Yeah.
Who are these shonim? Shonim. Okay. And then.
What does it mean to be misari?
Yeah. What does it mean to be misarev im shonim? Yeah. I would also add why what is the, okay, hold on a second here. I'm going to put this under who is the audience? Okay, we know it's the son, but specifically, why does he need to be warned about these things? Okay, so in other words, presumably there's three things he needs to be warned about. Apparently he lacks Yiras Hashem, he lacks Yiras HaMelech, and he mixes with shonim, or he's tempted to mix with shonim, right? So what are the reasons for those? Yeah.
What the thing was, what does it mean? What is aid, and what does it mean for it to be akum?
Yeah. So what aid is it talking about? And then why is it described as yakum pitom? I guess what the Israeli slang that you mentioned about pitom, what does that just mean, like what's up?
Yeah.
No,
I think so.
So it probably comes from what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then-
no, it's more
No,
like
it's not. It's not like what's up. It's like
wasn't like
I
the
think it's like
sudden-
also sudden, like similar to sudden.
what happened?
Oh, what happened?
Yeah,
Okay,
like what
yeah,
happened, like
Yeah.
Mapitom, like I think it's similar to like suddenly.
You don't like, hey, Mapito.
Okay, yeah.
Mapitom, no, it's like shalom.
Yeah, I don't know any Israeli slang.
Mapitom.
Yeah.
I remember if I was a kid, always that was one of our sweatshirts, Mapitom.
Yeah.
What is Pete?
Where's Ped? Yeah. So what is Ped? And then is it the same as aid? Like verbally and referentially? In other words, like is it saying that their aid will come up quickly and who knows the aid of both of them? Like, or is it and then if it's different, or you know, I guess, yeah, is it two just different ways to describe aid, or is it a different phenomenon? And these are like two arguments here. I guess the other question here is what is the argument? What argument? What is the relationship? What is the relationship between the argument in Chaf Beis and the warning in Chaf Aleph? Yeah.
Is the consequence because of lack of fear of Hashem and or the king,
Mhm.
or is it because of mingling with Hashem?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to just say, how do the consequences in Chaf Beis result from ignoring the warning in Chaf Aleph? Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing also, is like, let's just ask that about Chaf Aleph, which is, what is the relationship between the two halves of Chaf Aleph, right? Like, fear my son, fear Hashem, my son, and the king, and don't mix with Shonim. Like, we have to obviously know what Shonim are. Somehow I got it in my head that it's like someone just being very, very like not being what's the word when you say words distinctly? What's the word I'm looking for? No, distinctly. Like people who mumble are the opposite of this quality that I'm saying. Not emphatic. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
What? Is that a joke?
That was him mumbling.
Okay, yeah. But it's like I keep on thinking of Shonim as like a kid who's trying to say the word Rishonim, but but it's what? No, that's not the one I'm looking. All right, whatever. Can't think of my words today. Okay. All right. So is that it? Yeah. You have an idea? Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so I have I just have an explanation to explain Hashem and the king, and actually just Kabbalah.
Okay.
It's funny, like on Shabbos, I was learning with Isaiah, and we came across a pasuk. I forgot where it was. I was trying to look for that like it's had to do with like if your leaders are not like in line with like the Baruch, then you don't respect them, whatever, you don't honor them. So I'm wondering if Shonim, I'm going to translate Shonim as different.
Okay.
Right. And if they're different, I guess, within the framework of like with like a kingdom, if like they're opposing the kingdom or different, even different values or different agendas or whatever, then like they're not going to be like in sync with that kingdom and that melech, and it could be very problematic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so too over here with like the I'm just explaining the differences.
Sure.
And so with over here with Hashem, like there's if you're hanging out with someone who's different within with philosophical views or different religion or whatever, like it'll also be problematic.
Yeah.
And you interacting with both of them could be very dangerous for you and with your relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu and with your relationship with the kingdom.
Okay, so that's interesting. That's an interesting framework then. Yeah. So then does this assuming this presumably only works when the king is and his laws and values are aligned with Hashem?
So there are two ways you can go.
Okay.
You can take that way and just limit it to within Judaism specifically, but I think that this can also be applied to like we're in America, and America doesn't necessarily have the same values as we do with the Kurdish Baruch Hu.
Right.
It's also like, and we value living in America, and
Yeah.
we don't want anything to happen to America because they provide security.
Yeah.
Right, for us specifically. So, but if you oppose America, then that could be harmful for you and that,
Right.
right?
So the reason why I was asking about it is because it is possible that following the king is going to go against Hakadosh Baruch Hu or vice versa, right?
Yeah,
Right,
of course.
Right,
So
but you're saying
then
that there's a common consequence if you go against either, that we can say that this
ideally
Yeah.
we should be living with one
Right.
ideal, but like stereotypes, but like you don't.
Right.
So like you have
right. Okay, and then what just tell me again, what understanding are you having of shonim? People who are just different from the law,
they're different cultures, different religion, different agendas.
Yeah, I mean, it's
communism versus socialism, liberals versus Republicans.
Yeah, you saw the Metzudas David said, he quotes from Esther, but Dasehem shonos, that their laws are different. That was in Haman's accusation of the Jews. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Did author say it's not used that way?
Yeah. By the way, the word I was looking for was enunciate, which is the E word that means to pronounce something distinctly, which is not to be confused with. For years, I thought one of Rabbi Mann's favorite Svara words is enunciate, and I thought he was mispronouncing enunciate, but enunciate means to formally say something. Enunciate means to pronounce something distinctly.
How was enunciate spelled?
Like same source as announce. ANNUNCIATE. Enunciate, or maybe I skipped an N there. Yeah. Yeah, what do you say?
I have like a different.
Sure.
So I think maybe it's comparing your Hashem and your Melech in terms of like discipline about following, like I'm just gonna say like I'm just gonna take the king for example.
Yeah.
The king's laws, and like I think there is a phenomenon, and I think this is what shonim are. There's a phenomenon of people following the laws when they're in front of like an officer or something, or someone who's gonna enforce it or like report about it.
Yeah.
And then dropping it as soon as like the officer turns it back.
Right.
And it's warning you not to mingle with them and I think like learn from them. Because what will happen is they'll get caught.
Yeah.
And then they'll get consequences for
right.
And like suddenly I think that's
right. Okay, that's a good shot. So and you're saying the inconsistent is the translation? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I think it's not just don't do that. I think by mingling with them,
right,
it'll erode your sense of like, well, like, do I really need to be keeping this law right now? Because no one here is gonna,
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like any idea that we have is going to need to justify how you can compare yours Hashem and the Melech. And I think both of your ideas lend themselves to that, but I think we need to like explain. Like it's not enough to just explain how it applies to Hashem and how it applies to the king. We need to explain why the father is warning the son about both of these with the same warning.
Okay, I'd say maybe Yiras Hashem it's like it is easier to see this with Yiras Melech than it is with Yiras Hashem.
Yeah.
And so I'd say it's comparing it so that you learn from one to the other. From the king to Yiras Hashem, because with consequences for going against Hashem's word, whether that means Torah or or it's more naturalistic, the consequences for that are harder to see,
right?
But I think by comparing it to Yiras Melech, you can see that there's this commonality.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. Yeah, meaning that to people in this society, then the Yiras Melech is the familiar thing, right, and is going to be very real to them. How like if you upset the king, you could just like end your life, and it could be swift. And so, but with Hashem, that's not as that's not like
it's not as visible.
Yeah, and so in other words, like let's say you were hanging out with shonim who are being inconsistent with regards to keeping the king's laws, you would sense that that's like a danger zone. but with people who are shown in terms of Hashem's law, then like it's not as clear. So this is like familiarizing him with that. Yeah. Were you
I think I want to add on. I'm not sure if it's a different approach or not, but I think it's possibly adding on, like just going further in like the son himself, the father's like warning to the son is like I think like everyone has like a rebellious nature, and like and I think that like if you're rebelling against the king, then who's to say that you won't rebel against Hashem also? Like it's kind of like an authority figure.
Right.
In that sense, like if you're hanging out with these people, like the same like internal media that you have with rebelling to the king will also apply to Hashem.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I just don't know. I wish I knew the psychology of like from an experiential way what it's like to relate to the king, because I feel like the closest thing we can have in our experience is either a parent or a boss, and there is definitely a feeling of the rebelliousness definitely can express itself in one thing and then bleed into the other. I
mean, I am getting it from keep it obeying. How that's like
model for what was it?
President also.
President. Yeah, people don't really relate to the president that way though. Right. I don't think anyone even feels that they're violating the president's laws. Right. I don't think anyone relates. I don't think even like going way back. I don't even think that since the beginning of America, people relate to it as, I'm violating George Washington's will. Like no, like the laws are one thing.
An issue with who is the president over them. There's a lot of anger.
Right. There's definitely rebellion there. Right. Correct. Yeah. Okay. So let's actually look at some meforshim here. I'm unless I have an idea. I used to have a shot on this, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I'm in the mood to go to meforshim today. Okay, let's look at Metzudas David first. Okay, Yira v'gomer. Ata b'ni, you my son. Mitzchila yiras Hashem v'achkach as melech. Oh, so that's a good approach. So he's saying it's giving you the order, right? Of first fear Hashem, then the king. La'olam yiras Hashem kodemus, and yiras Hashem always comes first. Yeah. V'im shonim im anashim shemashanim pikudas hamelach v'yelchu b'shrius libam hara imahim al tisrael. So that's like your approach that you just said. That people who, he says when he says change the laws of the king, I think he means like they differ with it, like they act against it, and they follow the authority of their heart, of their evil heart. Actually, b'shrius libam, I know that phrase is from Dvarim. I know it's machlokes whether shrius libi means like the authority of a heart, like shiur v'kayim, or whether I think Rashi says differently. Shrirus, hold on. Shrirus. Ki b'shrius libi elech. L'mantzvos haravas etzmeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Oh. Okay. Shrirus in Rashi is what his heart sees fit to do. Let me just click on it here. Firmness or stubbornness. Yeah, so stubbornness, fine. Yeah, so either way, I think it's describing a rebellious sort of attitude. So don't mix with those guys. Okay, so we don't know what the relationship is yet. Let's see. Yakum Edam Shivram Shel HaOvrim Al Mitzvahs Hashem V'Davar Melech. The breaking of those who transgress the mitzvah of Hashem and the word of the king. Ufid Shenehem Onesh HaOver Al Mitzvahs Hashem. So the punishment of one who transgresses mitzvahs Hashem, Onesh Hamidiach Mipkudas Melech, and the punishment of the one who goes against the Pikud of the king, Miyodeh ma godel ha'onesh. Who knows how big the onesh will be? So it sounds like the thrust of what he's saying is the same as what Arya was saying, right? That let's just summarize here. But the new point is the priority here. So he's saying fear Hashem first, and then the king. Don't mix with people who rebel and follow their own will, connected either of those, because you don't know how big the punishment is going to be for either one. So the question I have here again is I feel like we need to justify why it's comparing Yiras Hashem and the Melech. Now here he does justify it because he's saying he's giving you an order, but I still don't know what both of them are doing in the pasuk. It still seems to be weird to me. Like and I think the approach we were taking is a good approach, but like,
yeah, I think it does make sense to talk about them both insofar as this applies to both of them.
Yeah.
Like you could have two separate pesukim about them.
Yeah, it applies to both, and then the reason you said that they that even though yours Hashem comes first, the fear of the king is going to be the model for that because it's easier to relate to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not following your question. Can you explain your question one more time?
The question about justifying?
Yeah, justifying what you just want to know why is the pasuk saying Hashem and in the king of the same pasuk?
Yeah. So he is addressing that because he's saying that it is giving you an order, but it only is addressing it. Like to me, that's like a after the fact thing of like once we see it here, then we're giving a reason for it. I personally feel like it needs to be justified, like in a l'chatchila way. Like why is he even comparing the two in the first place? And I think the approach we were taking is good. I just don't know if that's what he's saying or if there's a different idea. And I think your idea has a basis of this is that when you're addressing rebelliousness does not differentiate between different kinds of authority. Like any authority that tries to clamp down and tell you what to do, you're going to have a rebellious instinct against.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yes. I think that's kind of the answer. I mean, like let's look at the Havamina for a second. Let's assume for a second you had two separate pesukim.
Yeah.
I think there is a certain element of differentiating human authority versus God. I think a lot of this is kind of like like subconscious. I know I'm going a little psychological here, but like it's possible to say that like when we do relate to human authority different to God, we would never admit that our boss or the king is equivalent to God. Right. So I think that like naturally we would put them in a different hierarchy. Yeah. Because that's what it is. But in terms of authority, like an authority figure, like it's like you won't necessarily put them on the same level in terms of you rebelling to them because consciously you'll think that they're different, but subconsciously, like at the end of the day, it's stemming from a certain mida that you may relate to them in different ways. Right.
Yeah. No, I agree that there's definitely an unconscious thing here. I'm just thinking, by the way, that what's the Havamina? What would you say is the Havamina according to the way he's learning Chav Beis? He's saying so. You read the pasuk, it sounds like he's saying, who knows what the punishment will be? He's saying, who knows what the magnitude of the punishment will be. So what's the Havamina there? I think it leads to an interesting idea.
For what? For the king or for the?
For both.
For both.
Yeah. I think I'm reading it right. He says, "Mi yodea ma godel ha'onesh." Who knows how big the onesh will be? So the Havamina is that the guy thinks he knows how big the onesh is going to be. Right. So can we explain that Havamina?
Well, I think there's a general thing that if you ever have an assumption that you know how bad something will be, then like, okay, I can take a certain amount of blows. Like, okay,
right, exactly. So what I think he's pointing out is that whenever you rebel against the king or God, and by rebelling, maybe rebel is the wrong word. Whenever you violate their will, part of you is engaging in a calculus of, I know that there are consequences, but like, I can take it, like, or I'm willing to pay that cost, and what he's saying is you really don't know what the consequence is going to be, and that's like I think that's definitely again, that's the other reason we can't relate to this is because kings had absolute power and wielded it absolutely, and like the types of the fact that a king could just like execute you, or whatever, just seize all your property. I don't think we have anything that like lives in that fear. Like the worst that a boss can do is fire you, or make it hard for you to get hired again, but he can't like kill you, or just like, so I think it is very hard to have that, like the full extent of the Magoda Onesh. But with God, I think we definitely have this Havamina a lot. And I think that we in the among the more like philosophical school of Judaism, and like we talk a lot about Tamei HaMitzvos and mitzvos as a vehicle of perfection. I think that we're very prone to that kind of thing. I mean, again, Shlomo Melech made this mistake, right? Of violating the mitzvahs for the melech, and thinking that he could handle whatever the fallout was, or that the fallout wouldn't even happen to him. But you know what the fallout was? Dividing the Malchus in half and almost destroying Malchus Yehuda altogether. I think if you ask Shlomo, how can you violate these mitzvahs for the king? He would say, because the pasuk says that that these are safeguards against certain midos. And I think he would say, I can withhold these midos. Now, he was mistaken on that count, but I don't even think he would think that this endangers all of Klal Yisrael for all eternity. So it's just like, you don't know the, we invoke this mashal in Tשובה. This is my shot of this thing. I know there's different interpretations. Anyone know where I'm going to go in Tשובה?
Chapter 2.
No. Where do we invoke this thing about who knows what the results could be? Chapter 3. Just guessing numbers. After the warning of the shofar, wake up from your sleep. He says, "Lefikach tzarich kol adam sheyireh atmo kol hashana kula kilu chetzi zakai v'chetzi chayav." You should view yourself all year long as though you're half chayav and half liable. Half that was a slip. Half zakai and half liable. B'chein kol ha'olam chetzi zakai v'chetzi chayav. Chata chet echad hari hichriya atmo v'hichriya es kol ha'olam kula l'kav chova. If you do one chet, you tip yourself and the entire world to the side of liability. V'garam lo hashchas, and you cause destruction. Asa mitzvah achas hari hichriya atmo v'hichriya kol ha'olam kula l'kav zchus v'garam lahem teshuva v'hatzalah. And you tip yourself and the entire world to the kav zchus and cause teshuva and salvation. So that's like a thing. So my understanding of that is that, first of all, if you actually apply this, it can't literally be that every chet destroys you or saves you, because then you wouldn't be able to apply this mashal, But what it means is that there is potential in any chet you do or any mitzvah that you do to have a dramatic effect on the trajectory of the rest of your development. Going to one shiur can, I was just thinking about this with people who got into Mishlei through Rabbi Moskowitz, and they hear one Mishlei shiur, and that idea affects them, and they're like, oh, I want more of this, and then that leads to an entire life of learning Mishlei and then living Mishlei, or one chet. There are people. The example that comes to my mind is because I was talking about intermarriage recently, Rus, that a person. Oh, actually, yeah, no. I was listening to a podcast about intermarriage, and there's this frum girl who, in her college years, decided to start just hanging out with non-Jewish boys, and she ended up marrying one, and that's the type of thing where in the moment you don't think that this is going to have such big consequences, and you think to yourself okay, whatever happens, I can handle the onesh, and whether the onesh is from God, like hashgacha pratis, or a consequence in your perfection, or something like that. But that's the mistake, So I think the strategy. So now let's work this into a strategy here, right? So how do you practically implement this? And I also, the other thing I want to figure out is, I still think this is a weird word for people who violate the will of a king or God. Shonim, people who differ. Why use such a tame? It's almost a tame word, and even Metzudas struggles to justify it, because he says, let me just read both of them together again. Metzudas ציון says miloshin hishtanus v'chiluf, changing and reversing, and then he says it as mishanim pekudas hamelech, they change the decrees of the king. Yeah,
I think because the mistake here is so subtle, it's using a very subtle word. It's you're not oh, I'm gonna mingle with Rashayim, because you're oh, they're Rashayim.
Yeah.
Oh, there are people who are just differing.
Yeah. I think the better English translation might be deviant, not deviant as a label for the entire person, but those who deviate at all from the Pekudas Melech or God. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar. It is also interesting that the pasuk doesn't say don't hang out with Rishon or whatever.
Well, we have, in all fairness,
yeah,
I think we've been building up to this because we've had all those pesukim about not mingling with Rishayim.
Yeah, I mean, so the point
Right.
is like no one's gonna actively go out and do that. But it's possible that you may hang out with people who, just slightly.
Yeah, like I think the
Yeah.
example Isaac gave earlier, even though I think we're not saying that the pasuk is entirely about that, I think it is a good example of that, is people who are just, they will keep halacha in certain settings, and then in other settings they won't keep it, or they'll cut corners, cutting corners is an example of deviation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the cutting corners is much more like sneaky in a way, or like that's like insidious.
Insidious, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
That because they're not like they're still paying lip service to halacha, but then also violating it in a way that can totally affect you.
Yeah. I have an example that comes to my mind of this. So it used to be years ago, there was a person I used to pass on walking on Friday night on my way to shul, frum person, at least by all appearances. And I would see them having their pre-Shabbos cigarette. And I know that there were times when they were smoking past Shkia, Now I'm pretty sure that this person was Shomer Shabbos, but being loose about smoking cigarettes getting close to Shkia is like an example of like slight deviation. Like if you were, let's say you were, there was some law that the king enforced that required like an exact, like you have to be there. Let's say you're the king's guard, right? You have to be there at an exact time. No one is going to play that close to like, you're the president's bodyguard, right? And you're at the 9 a.m. shift. You're not going to cut it close and like, if I show up a couple minutes late, no one will worry, I mean, hopefully. Yeah, David?
I would also say that the showing versus like someone who's a fallen Asha, that in essence, they are the same insofar as they are determining the rules.
Yeah.
And like what actually like
Right.
I'm going to decide.
Right.
I think that it manifests itself differently. Of Asha will be like much more forthright.
Yeah.
I was doing versus the showing are going to be a little more sneaky with it.
Right.
Everything in essence.
Right. Oh, you know what? The other thing also, sorry, I just realized we didn't explain the piton. So miodea is the magnitude of it, but you also don't know when it's coming. And I think that's another fantasy that we use, is that like, okay, there are gonna be consequences, and like I can plan for this, I can like work around, I can, but no, there could be an immediate consequence, like here's another example I know of, is I know of somebody that who traveled for work, okay, and was having a long-term affair in a different country, okay, like long-term, like years, okay. Now, in that case, I'm sure by that point, then he was like justifying to himself that he was able to keep it on wraps. But you know what happened? He got into a car accident that could have killed him, and had to be in the hospital for like a long time, and get like many surgeries. And guess what his wife found out about,
People visited him at the hospital.
No, just like, who's gonna, like, he's unconscious, like he's, like they had, so like, that's the thing. I guarantee you this guy never suspected that he was gonna get into a car accident and then immediately have the affair being exposed. Now, again, it's not immediate in the sense that he started the sin much earlier, but like, like,
How should I find out?
I assume that the mistress had to like contact her to say that your husband is dying. Like,
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Wow.
no mistress is going to like not do that. I mean, that'd be crazy. Like,
Wow.
yeah. So like, so that's a crazy example. Okay, so just to summarize where we're at here, right?
Yeah.
Is that the point of the pasuk is to warn against even slight deviations from Melech Basar V'Dam and Melech Malchi Hamlachim. Okay, and they're being compared because Melech Basar V'Dam is a familiar thing that the kid will already know, and then we're extending that to God. And we're saying that the essence here is there's two rationalizations that you use, which is that whatever the consequence is, I can handle it, and like I can prepare for it. And the answer is no, is that you don't know how immediate it could be, and you don't know the magnitude of it. And that should be evident in the case of the king, but it's not as evident in the case of God, and therefore you shouldn't deviate at all. Were you going to add one thing?
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like Zemanim is a very good example of like where there's a structure,
Yeah,
but it's easy to like play fast and loose with it.
Yeah.
You know, and like
right. Maybe my atomic watch is wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what we get tomorrow.
Thank-
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.